Thank you, Michael. With an introduction like that, I look forward to hearing from that speaker too. Thanks. That's very generous. Thanks. I'll take that. Anyway, thank you for the invitation and for taking the time out to listen to me today. It's my privilege. It is my privilege to be here with you. And I hope to encourage eager young minds to be more inquisitive and ponder the mysterious. I urge you to ask questions, seek out answers, probe for, and craft solutions. The future is yours, and so is the mess that will be waiting for you to clean up. So listen up. The world is a dangerous and wondrous place. So be forewarned and forearmed in your preparation to contend with it. I've lived and worked in many unfree nations for the duration of my adult life. What I can share with you without hesitation is I fall in love with America every time I return from one of those unfree societies. The world order has shifted to blocks of what can be simplified as free and unfree nations. We were born a free people because of those who defended the Bill of Rights for us. We are a constitutional republic that limits governmental power and reserves those not enumerated in the Constitution to the people, as stated by the 10th Amendment. We are free to think, free to dissent, free to be obtuse, free to realize our full potential, and free from being property of the state. The struggle to remain free from onerous government is constant, and we must be vigilant. Just like a boxer in the ring, protect yourself and your liberties at all times. Remember, it's not the purpose of free people to serve the state. It's the purpose of the state to serve free people. There will be those who will refute we are free and propose conspiracy theories abound in every shadow. Well, as a former soldier that held top secret clearances in the Pentagon, working on the Army Staff for Intelligence, and later on as an international bodyguard who protected, among others, the former Deputy Director of the CIA, I will advise you that a little paranoia is healthy. Just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not after me. So keep your tinfoil hats handy. I advise that. Now, I've heard the late Professor Howard Zinn admit that he has said many annoying things. I contend that being annoying for the sake of it is not uncovering truth. He said he's a historian who's disinterested in the past, who offers his own story as historic truth. Well, that makes us the more thankful to historians like Solon, Hippocrates, and others who were interested in it. But considering that inventing history that fits your thinking and gives you comfort by believing it is a form of idolatry. Creating a God in your own image, imbue it with the traits you admire about yourself, and compel others to worship at the altar of faith born in your own mind, and dismiss the realities that do not conform to it, and mock those who scrutinize it, is a form of intellectual dishonesty. In the course of my debates about Al-Qaeda terrorists, I have heard many pundits say that Osama bin Laden is a freedom fighter, George Washington, and completely justified in attacking Americans. Well, I challenge anyone in this room who truly believes that to wager their head and meet with Akali Sheikh Mohammed and repeat their convictions to him. How many here are willing to bet their head? Yeah, thought so. If you know anyone who is, ask them to Google search Nick Berg, Daniel Pearl, and beheadings. I think I would bet that the late Professor Howard Zinn would not wager his head to prove his story, nor would he be annoying to a jihadist with a hacksaw. If you encounter a professor who expects you to believe this rhetoric, politely observe. If you're not willing to wager, or if they're not willing to wager their own head, please do not expect you to wager yours. Test those who try to convince you of any moral equivalence to this thinking, whether they are willing to personally surrender themselves to this brand of freedoms. Ask them, would they personally submit to their interpretation of Sharia law? Would they offer every female in their family to undergo having their clitoris surgically removed? Or are they willing to hang suspected homosexuals, or murder anyone who will not practice their brand of religion or converts from it. Ask whoever believes this to be acceptable why they are here with us and not there with them. Now that I have your attention, let's use our heads for what they were intended. Thinking for some, wearing hat backwards for others. We hear a lot of rhetoric about the war on terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, terrorism is a tactic. It is a weapon of war. It is psychological warfare directed at the civilian population to instill fear, mistrust, and erode confidence in their political leaders with the goal of causing them to change a political policy that would meet their demands. We can no more wage a war on terrorism as we can wage a war against a bazooka. It is propaganda. It is a propaganda tool by a government to identify an unidentifiable enemy. It is a label for a faceless and a flagless enemy, an enemy without a state, but who is likely state-sponsored. What we are engaged in is unconventional warfare, or as it's called, asymmetrical warfare. What we have witnessed these long years is it being fought using conventional means, or symmetrical tactics. It's the difference of war fighting in one direction versus every direction. The major fallacy in our national security policy is that it's reactive and not proactive. Terrorism warfare creates reactive authoritarian government policies that become incrementally oppressive against us in the name of protecting the state. The danger for free people is that by reason of societal conditioning, humans conform, become compliant, and tend to suspend natural resistance to authority. They willingly surrender their liberty for the illusion of safety to an authority figure. As an example, we can cite the formation of the TSA and their intrusive, invasive violations of our Fourth Amendment rights. It's a good example of a bad policy that trades away freedom from some in the interest of security for all. It does not secure anyone from what it's supposedly designed or intended to do. I am adamant that the TSA should be decommissioned, these policies and practices halted, and a layered, tiered, common sense approach to aviation security be adopted immediately before disaster strikes by exploiting the vulnerabilities this illusionary method creates and endangers the public further. Now, to counter the supposition posed by the late Professor Howard Zinn's historicity, let's point out what he completely missed in his numerous annoyances, and many of you here might be unaware. So think about what I'm about to tell you before you react by simply dismissing it. Open your mind a minute. The driving component to global terrorism, interstate conflicts, and underworld economics is narcotics trafficking and the illicit arms trade. 90% of the world's poppy, that is the primary ingredient of heroin and opium, comes from Afghanistan. Last figures topped it nearly at $100 billion a year. The heroin and opium supply that comes out of Central Asia, controlled by tribal mafias, Turkish mafias, and the Sicilian mafias, pump out enough heroin, imagine this, pump out enough heroin to supply the European and US market demands. That's a lot of heroin.